I want you to get together.
I heard you mention on a podcast your views on planets are as angels that left their habitation. Can you expound on that? Um, so that's from Slim Stripe. It's a good point, and I don't know these things. All right, it's very hard to know the matter on such vast, huge concepts. I know the mainstream understanding is that stars are suns that are trillions and millions of miles away. But I'm viewing it from a biblical cosmological angle. And if you are going to view it from a biblically cosmological model, then it's an enclosed system. And those stars are not billions and billions of miles away, and they are not suns. Okay? So this is what I'm saying. To square it with the biblical perspective, I would have to throw out the universal model of vast empty space, billions of miles, billions of stars, and I would have to do the enclosed system model. And from the enclosed system model, like I said, they're not suns, they're light, and God describes them, I'm pretty sure, as angels. And it says, the third of the stars will fall from heaven is described in, I think it's in Revelation. And these are implying they're conscious, they're entities that will leave their position and come to Earth. And my understanding, just discussing like angels as seraphim, for example, I discovered that if you look at China's history, for example, they talk about the 4 dragons that left the sea in order to bring rain to the people because the Jade Emperor wasn't doing it. But they did that directly against the orders of the Jade Emperor, who said to them, "Why have you left your place?" Okay. So it's implying to me that there's plenty of spiritual beings we'll call God's angels who are supposed to be in specific positions in the creation of the earth, which is by biblical standard an enclosed model. Okay. So I would understand if some angels are supposed to control the tides in certain areas, geographical locations, if some angels are supposed to control the rivers, the trees, the grass, the dew, the wind, and all these other elemental things, then who's to say that also some of the angels, because there's millions and billions of them, the hosts of heaven, aren't literally the stars in heaven, the hosts of heaven, the stars themselves. It would make sense that all of these things that are a part of the creation have a consciousness, which is that of being an angel of the Lord with a role to play in his creation. They didn't create anything. God created them to play that role. And the rebellion would be the angels leaving their first estate, which is where God created them to be. And it's rebellious because they left. They went against God's plan and design for his creation, in rebelling against God's creation for personal selfish reasons, from the sounds of it, because they wanted to be the only gods on earth, not man. They wanted to be above man, not servants to man. Which is what God had in mind, Sorry, just drinking some more god-awful green tea there while it's still warm. Just give me a second. So yeah, there you go. I guess I've expounded on why the angels were the stars. Now, in terms of the planets, the wandering stars, as they're described in the Bible, in Enoch as well. And it says, the punishment for those stars that left their first estate, left their first inhabitation, and it's very severe. They're going to be punished in fire, they're going to be tormented for what they've done. And I think it's because those particular angels who became the planets, as we call them today, have deceived all of mankind for millennia into believing all sorts of things just because they simply went around in circles rather than sticking where they should have been. It sparked mankind's imagination, so described as Venus, the goddess Venus, Saturn as well. Saturn is also worshipped as a god in many respects. Saturn is also described as the god of time. Saturn is also Kronos, and it's kind of this association man ended up creating with the planets as gods, if they are angels, is fallen angel worship. It's the worship of fallen angels. It's the same thing, So it makes sense why you always wonder, like, why have gods got personified images? So why do planets? Why have they been personified into godly forms in these ancient cultures? Well, because they were gods. They were fallen angels who were positioning themselves as gods, and by the nature of them being these lights in the sky that move, it makes people make all. And today we have a whole other deception if it's true. If biblical cosmology is the truth and the true model, and what we've been told by NASA is a lie, then what those moving stars have done today is corrupt mankind again by making us believe in an absolutely absurd lie of an infinite universe. With that basically spits in the face of God's creation again. So, by nature of the planets moving, or the stars wandering, or the angels leaving their estate in rebellion, they have caused so much mess in simply the way humanity perceives reality by doing that. It's thrown everything out of whack, and it's created all sorts of false theories in the minds of men. So yeah, the punishment is severe for doing that. And it's odd that it's described like that in Enoch. When Enoch's being shown his tour of heaven, it says, who are these mountains in the darkness here? And he's describing planets, what are these things? And the angel, I think it might be Gabriel who's guiding him through heaven. I can't remember. Is it Uriel? And he literally says, oh, those are the wandering stars. There's a special place in hell for them. They'll be bound and chained and tortured for eternity for what they've done. So this is important in terms of the angelic rebellion. A lot of people want to connect the dots and say all these characters across different cultures were the same, and I'm not always sure that's true. I do think there's been there's the Watchers who mated with the human women, 200 worth of them. Then there's the planets, which we call wandering stars, and then there are literally wandering stars. I mean, you've seen the UFO phenomena, right? We're all conspiracy theorists here, right? We can all talk candidly about this for sure. But I'm pretty sure you've seen, when you look up every now and then, what look like stars swimming through the sky like a tadpole, in a weird zigzag, nonchalant, wee woo type of way, just like stopping for a minute, checking out the other direction, stopping and going, now I'm going to carry on going the way I was going, moving in ways planes just cannot physically move. And I'm not talking about a helicopter here. I'm talking about a clear star swimming in the sky like an animal, like a fish. We've all seen them, right? Because we're paying attention. Are they not also wandering stars who have left their first estate? These are angels who are in rebellion against God, who didn't want to stay in that spot he ordained them to stay in for the signs and seasons ordained by God in his own calendar and clock, which he designed for us, They don't want to play that role. I don't want to be a cog in a clock, is what they thought. And they left. And they've been messing with us ever since. So I don't know. You've got to be careful. This is why, like I said, following the stars, to divine your future, for example, all this type of stuff, and coming up with astro-theological explanations for the truth of Christ. You can't trust any of that if this is true, because there are literally stars in heaven purposefully positioning themselves in places that go against God's design to deceive mankind. So they could make it look like Christ was just an astro-theological symbol, if that's the case. Did you understand? And they've created a religion like that by doing such things. And there's plenty of people out there say, oh, the Bible's all just astro-theological symbols. Christ is just a symbol. It's an astro-theological symbol for the movement of the planets. Jesus is just the sun, and it's kind of, well, yeah, I can imagine why people will come up with that kind of nonsense if our sky is fully messed up and designed to make mankind think that way. I can believe that, And it's all explained in Enoch, this ancient book that explains angels left their first estate and became what we call moving stars in the sky. And that's a dark story when you think about it, you know, and it really it changes your perspective of reality when you think about things that way. And don't forget, all the angels that rebelled weren't necessarily just the stars in heaven. It was those who were in the sea, or in the grass, or in the ground, or in the mountains, or in the trees, or in the rain, or in the wind, or in the clouds. You know, everything has a spirit within it, which God ordered to do its thing at its correct appointed time. And a third of the angels are refusing to do that. It might explain why there's so much death and destruction and chaos, why nature is out to kill us in many ways. It might explain all of these things. And then on top of that, you had angels manifesting in the flesh as dragons, you know, coming down and teaching mankind stuff that they shouldn't have known as well, you know, and corrupting mankind as well as sleeping with the women. It was a mess. Reality in the antediluvian age was a shit show. And maybe it is an absolute shit show now as well. But because we live in it, we just don't see it or understand that. Things are not as they should have been. Things are not in their ordained, correct position or place anymore. You know, everything is corrupted. And I hope you enjoyed that last little rant there about the angels. I think I have to make so many more videos about the Angelic Rebellion because people just imagine scenes of men with wings and swords and armor clashing in the sky. I do not think that's what it looks like. All right, I think it's insanely incomprehensible how psychedelic the Angelic Rebellion truly was. I mean, have you seen that image of like I think it's like some Swiss village in like the 1500s that had an extremely crazy light phenomena going on in the sky? Let me see if I can get that up. Yeah, you've all seen it. I think it's like Hamburg or something like that. The 1561 celestial phenomena it's known as, and I'll read it out to you here. But the images of this, what people drew, looks crazy. It's like literally the sky is falling, and it's just an absolute chaos of color and form and shapes, and weird psychedelic looking shapes, and like a spear in the sky with red streaks and blue blobs and red blobs. The sun looks like it's exploding with crazy horns sticking out of it. It's that's probably what happened when the Angelic Rebellion happened. It probably looked absolutely mental. Again, reality suddenly stopped being what it used to be. Things no longer functioned how they should function. I think that's what started to happen during the Angelic Rebellion. I think they seriously messed up the order of reality by making that choice. And maybe in many ways, that's why we do have to resort now to really crude, brutish forms of energy harvesting through technology. You know what I mean? Things are changing. Maybe some of these beings just aren't playing ball anymore, who are supposed to be allowing the free flow of energy. Maybe they are part of the Angelic Rebellion and they're just refusing to let the energy flow. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and anything they can do to make life a living hell for us here in this existence now, essentially. I don't know. I don't know. I'm spitballing here.
I want you to get together